In order to avoid a bad ending, I started planning to change the conditions that trigger the ending. I found the black card hidden in the treasure chest, and planned to enter the underground black market to find the medicine that can bewitch the princess. Based on my memory, I found a small shop selling this medicine. After I explained the situation, the shop owner turned around and searched among a pile of bottles. Can the shop owner find what I'm looking for? The sun outside the castle has slowly set. The clouds slowly disappeared into the sky. The orange sunset shines on every corner of the castle. A gust of wind blew gently, making the leaves on the tree rustle. After dinner, Moen walked down the corridor of the Grand Duke's mansion. He is preparing to return to his room. As he walked, he pondered on how to change the triggering ending for the outcome next. There is only one day left before the coming-of-age ceremony, and it is too late to make any more arrangements now. But we can only take one step at a time and improvise. The first order of business is still to solve the established end of offending the royal family. Pure white girl, future Imperial Queen Cecilia. It is obviously impossible to defeat that once-in-a-millennium magical genius with ordinary drugs. And this guy has never had any related drugs in his memory, which proves that there is currently no such thing in the mansion. Perhaps there is one there. He closed his eyes and held his chin with his right hand, lost in thought. Suddenly, he thought of a place where he could buy the medicine he had in mind. Hey, I remember when I inherited my memory, there was a place called the Black Market that specialized in selling various prohibited items and slaves. Maybe. At this moment, around the corner, a maid walked over holding a teapot and teacup filled with black tea. Her face is red, and she looks not very energetic. Moen, who was thinking about something, didn't notice that someone was about to come over. The maid didn't notice who was about to walk over. In the next second, Moen and the maid collided together. Both of them let out a pained yelp at the same time. After being hit by Moen, the maid immediately fell to the ground. The teapot and teacup in her hand spilled on the ground, and all the tea in the teapot was spilled out. Some of the tea even got stuck on her long socks. Due to the impact just now, her head felt even more dizzy. She rubbed her head with her hand, looked at the spilled red tea, and nervously said, So painful. The master and madam's black tea. Sorry, I was just thinking about something and didn't see the way. Are you okay? Moen, who had already stood up, saw that the maid who had been bumped into was still sitting on the ground, so he reached out his hand and tried to pull her up. The maid raised her head, and after seeing the person standing in front of her clearly, the expression on her face suddenly turned to fear. She backed away in fear and stammered. You are young Master Moen. The maid recognized the person in front of her as the young master of Duke Campbell. She exclaimed in panic. Seeing the tea splashing onto Moen's collar, she became even more nervous. Moen raised an eyebrow and didn't seem too concerned about the maid bumping into him. The maid hurriedly took out a handkerchief to wipe his collar, wanting to remove the stains. She nervously said to him, "Young master, I'm sorry. I'll help you now." Moen looked down in confusion and realized that his collar was a bit dirty. He raised his hands, intending to give the maid some space to easily wipe his collar. He was surprised by the maid's nervous mood. However, the white collar was getting dirtier as she wiped it, and the traces of tea were getting bigger and bigger. Seeing the dirty collar unable to be wiped clean, the maid panicked. She cried nervously. "It's ruined." She turned her back to Moen, quickly hugged her head with both hands, and crouched down. She felt like she had committed a heinous act. "Young master, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to. Please don't hit me, don't strip me naked, and throw me on the street. I will definitely not do it again next time. Ah, young master, spare my life." She was so scared that tears couldn't stop flowing, and her face turned red from being too nervous. Moen stood behind her and didn't say a word. From the maid's words, Moen roughly inferred the original Moen Campbell's attitude towards the household servants. He looked at the trembling maid, sighed, and looked speechless, not knowing where to say the original Moen Campbell. Just spilled a cup of tea, scared the little girl like this. How bad is the impression of the original Moen Campbell in the eyes of others? Moen leaned slightly down and reached out to support the maid's arm, wanting to help her up. He said softly to her with a gentle expression, "Okay, it's just a small issue. I won't punish you. Get up." The maid turned her head slightly and found that Moen not only did not punish her, but also took the initiative to pull her up. She looked at him with teary eyes, somewhat puzzled. At this moment, Moen, who touched the maid's arm, felt that her body temperature was slightly higher than that of ordinary people. He asked her with a caring tone, "Speaking of which, are you okay? Your body is so hot." Then, the maid felt a pulling force pulling her over. She opened her eyes wide. Moen held the back of the maid's head and pulled her into his arms. He pressed his neck against the maid's forehead, testing her temperature, and found that it was indeed very high. "Sure enough, your body is so hot. Don't you even know that you have a fever? Your forehead is so hot that you can cook eggs. Why don't you go rest? Young master." The maid raised her head and looked at him nervously. She didn't know why Moen did this to her. She was flushed and couldn't tell if she was now blushing because of the fever or because of Moen's behavior. Because tomorrow is the young master's coming-of-age banquet, and there is currently a shortage of manpower in the household. So, Moen's voice sounded above her head. "Even so, you can't work while sick." Just as he released the maid in his arms, Anne walked over from the other end of the corridor. She saw Moen standing with a maid and expressed confusion about it. "Young master?" Moen and the maid turned their heads together and noticed Anne walking towards them. "Ah, Anne, you came just in time. Arrange for her." He suddenly remembered that he hadn't asked the name of the maid in front of him yet. He supported her shoulder and asked her with a smile on his face, "By the way, what's your name?" The maid looked up blankly at Moen and whispered her name. "Young master. My name is Noel." Moen gently patted her shoulder and said to Anne standing behind her, Arrange for Noel to rest." Regarding the arrangement mentioned by Moen, Anne explained the current situation expressionlessly. "But young master, tomorrow night is your coming-of-age ceremony, and now every maid in the mansion has her own responsibilities. If Noel takes a break, the workload of other maids will increase significantly." Without hesitation, Moen immediately gave an answer. "Recruit people from outside. Our Grand Ducal Mansion cannot afford to hire even a few people." Moen turned around and prepared to return to his room. He looked at Anne with a firm gaze. He said softly to her, "That's how it was decided. Tell the head maid to arrange for all unwell servants to rest, and for vacant staff to be recruited from outside. I don't want a large group of mentally confused patients to cause inconvenience to the guests at tomorrow's coming-of-age ceremony." And closed his eyes and bowed slightly, indicating that he had received instructions from Moen. "I understand. I will convey this command to the head maid." After Moen finished explaining the maid's affairs, he left here directly and walked back to his room. Anne and Noel stood behind him, watching him leave until his figure disappeared around the corner and the sound of footsteps gradually faded away. Noel looked at Moen's back, feeling a little confused about his behavior and what had just happened. She asked Anne, who was standing next to her. "Anne, I remember the young master said before that he didn't want dirty outsiders to dirty the Duke's mansion, so he didn't let the maid master recruit foreign aid? Today's young master, and seems to know what she wants to ask." She didn't give a direct answer, but asked her to go rest quickly. "Don't overthink. Follow the young master's orders and go rest quickly." Although Noel was still confused about the current situation, Anne said so, and had no choice but to comply. "Okay." Noel turned around and took a step back to his room to rest. However, Anne remained standing still, seemingly pondering something. She turned around with a meaningful expression and looked towards a certain part of the hallway. Compared to before, there have indeed been some subtle changes. In order to avoid uncontrollable situations, it seems that the plan must be brought forward. After returning to the room, Moen searched for something in the room. He threw out some jewelry, and then threw the scroll he found on the ground. These don't seem to be what he's looking for. There is a large treasure chest placed somewhere in the room. Moen knelt on the ground and crawled into the treasure chest to search for things. Various types of jewelry are scattered around the treasure chest. He searched and threw out a batch of unnecessary jewelry while muttering to himself. "This is not, and neither is this. It's impossible. This guy's memory." The only way to deal with a super magical genius like a princess is to use special psychedelic potions. This thing is not only difficult to refine, expensive, but also a prohibited item. The only place where it can be sold is... "I found it. This guy is really a scumbag. In the novel, I remember it was quite difficult to get this thing." After searching for a while, Moen finally found a black card in the treasure chest. He crawled out of the treasure chest and also dropped some jewelry. He had several strings of precious jewelry hanging on his head and shoulders, some of which even fell to the ground. However, Moen didn't care about those. When he found the card, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. The black card in Moen's hand is also decorated with gold borders. Although it may seem ordinary, this card is very useful. This is a proof of access to the underground black market. A VIP pass for the underground black market. That evening, Moen rode in a luxurious carriage through several brightly lit streets, and then crossed a bridge, preparing to enter the city gate. Probably because it was nighttime. The people on the bridge and near the city gates were a bit sparse. In no time, the carriage stopped in front of a very luxurious and magnificent building. This building is called the Chasford Chamber of Commerce. Moen got off the carriage, and the guards protecting him followed closely behind. He instructed them, Wait for me here for a while. I'll go buy some gold and silver jewelry for my father and mother to wear tomorrow." The groom and 2 guards nodded and answered, "Okay, young master." Moen detoured behind the carriage and then cautiously turned around to take a look. After observing for a moment and realizing that no one was nearby to notice him, he tightened his tie and turned towards a path diametrically opposed to the Chamber of Commerce. People come and go on the streets. Some people were walking and chatting, while others were hurriedly searching for their desired destination. They didn't notice that a person with yellow hair quietly left the street and quickly walked into a small path next to a house. After entering the small path, Moen entered the sewer below the city of the Empire. The water in the sewer flowed slowly, occasionally emitting a foul odor. He pulled out a black cloak from somewhere and put it on his body. He walked while searching for a route to enter the underground black market. According to the route in memory, the outer ring of the royal city, deep in the sewer of Belland City. He wears a mask and covers his head with the hat on his cloak to conceal his true appearance and identity. He held a torch and slowly searched along the route in his memory. In no time, he found a door guarded by someone. He held up the torch and shone it around, confirming that this should be the entrance to the black market. This should be the place. The person guarding the gate is also wearing a black cloak and a mask on their face. It seems that people here have a very high sense of confidentiality. He could see someone walking towards here from a distance, very cautiously questioning the other party. "Stop. Who are you?" Moen answered the man's question in front of him according to the secret language he had memorized. "The mice in the sewer." "What are you doing here?" Moen took out the black card from his clothes. He walked forward and showed it to the guards, indicating that he was a customer of the black market. "Search for carrion. This is my pass." The guard leaned in to observe the black card. After determining that it was a pass exclusive to the black market, he gave way and bowed slightly. "Honored guest, please come in." The guard turned around and opened the door. Some light shone out from behind the door. Moen's eyes widened slightly, a little excited and curious about what the black market looked like. What Moen didn't expect was that there could still be such a large black market in the space of the sewer. The black market is shrouded in a dark atmosphere. Except for the shops where the lights are on, there is not much light in the entire black market. This is the underground black market of the Empire. The Leopold Underground Black Market. As Moen walked, he observed the various mysterious things placed outside by the shop owners. He saw many bottles containing magical herbs on the shelves of a shop. These bottles come in various sizes and contain medicinal herbs of different shapes. Magical herbs material. He looked at another shop again. There are many iron cages next to the shop, which contain several fierce-looking animals. Magic synthesis beast. Moen was surprised by the things sold on the black market while muttering to himself. This truly embodies a fantastical world. If I recall correctly, this place even deals in the trade of demi-human slaves. It seems that one of the protagonist's later teammates bought it from here. Well, these are all secondary. Let's focus on the main task at hand. Moen found a small shop based on the address in his memory. He pushed the door open, and the bell on the wall made a pleasant sound, reminding the shop owner that a customer had come in. Upon hearing the sound of the bell, the shop owner immediately stood up from his seat. The shop owner is wearing a red cloak with cat ears and a mask with a cat-like mouth, making him look like a red kitten. She waved her hand and warmly welcomed the arrival of the guests. "Wow, finally a guest came to our door today. Please come in." After welcoming the guests, the shop owner sat down with her hands on her face and looked towards Moen. What does this young master want to see? Although the store is small, it doesn't lack anything. Moen won't beat around the bush either. He directly told the shop owner what he wanted. "I want that kind of medicine." The shop owner had some doubts. "That kind?" "It's the kind that is colorless and odorless, specifically designed for wizards, and immediately leaves them unconscious for several hours after taking it." The shop owner thought for a moment and then gestured "okay" to Moen, as if she immediately knew what medicine he was looking for. "Oh, it's that kind. I understand. Wealthy people all like to play like this, right? Haha." Then, the shop owner placed an advertisement for Moen. "I happen to know several good shops that sell slaves. Can I recommend them to you? Just need to pay some referral fees. Reporting my name can also offer discounts." Seeing that the shop owner had been talking here for so long without intending to find what he wanted, Moen turned around and wanted to leave the store. "Don't you have it here? If not, I'll leave." The shop owner found that his promotion had caused his impatience, so she quickly reached out her hand to persuade him. "There is. Of course there is. Young master, please stay." This small shop has several rows of cabinets, on which there are also many unknown jars containing magical herbs. The shop owner hurriedly got up and walked towards the cabinet at the back, pointing to it and saying to Moen, "But this treasure is a scarce item. I need to look for it. Young master, please wait for me for a moment." The shopkeeper opened some bottles and jars on the cabinet, searching for the medicine that Moen wanted. Moen stood still, watching the busy movements of the shop owner, silently analyzing in his heart. This person has camouflage magic on their face, and voice has been processed by magic, making it difficult to distinguish whether male or female. However, the tone and demeanor. And this amazing figure. The shop owner searched for a while, but still couldn't find the bottle that stored that medicine. Oh no, the 2 bottles of medicine that were refined 2 days ago. I remember they were placed in this box. Where did they go? Through these, Moen roughly determined the gender of the shop owner. Female, most likely still a beautiful girl. To secure a foothold in such a murky and cutthroat environment, the shop owner's skills are probably more powerful than her figure. If I could establish a good relationship with such a person, she might be able to help me when I am exiled by the Empire in the future.